Hope everyone's having an amazing day, feeling great. This content is super exciting today. We're going to be talking about ROI specifically as it relates to rewards and recognition. And I wanted to kind of start this off by sharing a stat with everyone. So according to HR.com's 2023 study, only 32% of organizations say that their rewards and recognition programs are highly effective. And usually that's because those programs are homegrown and they're often unmanaged. Somebody's kind of just doing this off the side of their desk, right? So today we're going to be giving you some tangible tactics and strategies. We're going to hear from some experts who have built some really successful programs. And the idea is that you'll have some takeaways to help you build an effective strategy at your own organizations. So again, very excited to share this content with you today. The session is brought to you by Bucketlist Rewards. We are a #1 employee rewards and recognition platform. All of the panelists on the call today have used Bucketlist Rewards, and they have some really excellent strategies for how to build an effective recognition program. Very excited to have our panel joining us today. So we're being joined by our friends from the Ely Bloomington Community Hospital and Cameron Memorial Community Hospital. And they really are the perfect partners for this because they've been extremely successful in building their rewards and recognition programs. We're going to do some formal introductions in just a moment, but I first wanted to share our agenda with everybody. So we're going to start off just with our quick welcome intros. We're going to do a little bit of an icebreaker, and then we're going to move into the second section here, which is all about stats and chats. This is where we're going to get a deep dive into the content. We're going to talk about how rewards and recognition can help solve business challenges. We're going to then talk about how we can measure the impact of rewards and recognition. And then finally, we'll get into some dialogue around strategies to help you build a compelling program. Towards the end, we'll talk about some key takeaways. We're going to leave a lot of time for Q&A because I suspect we're going to have quite a bit today. And on that note, please don't be shy with your questions. You have experts on the call today who are excited to answer those questions. So feel free to submit via the Q&A section here or use the chat feature as well. And with that, let's get into our introductions. So I'll start off with myself. My name is Curtis. I'm a culture advocate here at Bucketlist Rewards. I have a pretty interesting background when it comes to how I kind of gravitated into tech and software and building employee culture. I actually used to be in a touring rock band, hence the guitar in my background here. So I'm a former professional musician who just loves performance. I love doing things like webinars, and that's why I'm here today. And I'll pass it over to Jody to introduce herself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us today. I'm Jody Martin. I'm the marketing and communications team leader at Ely Bloomington Community Hospital. And I've been kind of part of our reward and recognition journey from the beginning as a member of the HR department.
So thanks, Jody. Yeah, and thanks again also for having us join you today. My name is Rochelle Schoberg. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer here at Ely Bloomington. And so outside of just being the HR officer, I've been a large part of this process due to the longevity in which I've been here. I've been with this facility for 23 years. So I'm eager to share a lot of the excitement that came behind how we found Bucketlist and where we're going with it.
Yeah, and my name is Zach Beiswinger. I'm Executive Director of Patient Experience and Transitions here at Cameron Hospital. At Cameron, we're an independent, nonprofit critical access hospital in Indiana. My background's in physical therapy, but I've had an interesting journey similar to Curtis to get into kind of patient experience and rewarding our team members here. And yeah, we've been with Bucketlist. We went live in May, and so yeah, very excited to share our experience thus far. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. And what's great too is obviously in the healthcare space specifically, rewards and recognition is hugely important, right? Especially over the last couple of years, employees dealing with things like burnout, stress, and so I think this is a great panel to be able to speak directly on this topic. Just some very quick housekeeping for all of our participants today. So you have a chat box. I see a lot of you are already using it. That's great. Please put your comments in there. If something really resonates with you, share that. If you've got some questions, you can add it in there. the more that you're engaged with this session, the more value you will be able to take from it, because it's going to allow our panelists to answer your questions directly. So please don't be shy using the chat feature and the Q&A. We are going to launch a few polls through this as well. If you haven't used that before in Zoom, basically a poll is going to come up on screen for you. We ask that you just answer the questions to the best of your ability. Towards the end, we're going to share your professional development credits as well with HRCI. So make sure you stick around to receive that. And this session is being recorded. So if you want to get a copy of the recording, certainly we'll be able to send it out. We're also going to post this on our website as well. All right. So in the spirit of building community together, I always like to kick these off with an icebreaker question. We'll do a little bit of a low ball. This is for our panelists and for our participants. So type in the chat your thoughts on this. How does recognition make you feel? If you've ever been recognized personally before, what were some of the emotions that you experienced with that? Awesome. We've got, so in the chat here, appreciated, valued, seen, noticed. Yes, absolutely. Amazing. Cool. I love it. Valued as an employee, heard, valued. Okay, so a lot of answers around, feeling valued or like you belong to the organization. Would love to hear quickly from our panelists your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I valued resonated with me. I mean, I think they're all great as I'm watching them pop up, but I think it does send a strong sense of value to staff.
Yeah, same. Seen, valued, those are all words that come to mind. Appreciated is another word that comes to mind when I think of being recognized. So yeah, those are all great responses.
Awesome. Okay, that question was easy, panel, right? These are going to get a little more tricky as we go through, but thank you for that. That's great. I wanted to also just quickly launch a poll here, and this is for all of our attendees today. The purpose of this poll is basically just going to be to allow us to kind of focus the content for the session. So I am just going to go ahead and get into our polls area here, which seem to have disappeared from. Here we go. All right, so we're going to go ahead and launch just a couple of quick questions with the group. You should all see that on screen now. Thumbs up from our panelists. Do you guys see that there? Okay, awesome. So for our attendees, please go ahead and answer the poll questions on screen. I'm just going to give everybody 30 seconds or so here to do that. There's 3 questions in that poll. The first is, do you have a recognition program today? So do you have something in place? If you do have a recognition program, to what extent are people participating in it? Is it something that you're seeing high levels of engagement? Is it sort of mixed? And then finally, what areas do you want us to focus on today? So we've got a few kind of key areas we think it makes sense to focus, but we'd love to hear from you as well. Lots of responses coming in here. That's great. Keep them coming. Just give this another few seconds. Okay, I'm seeing some trends in the results. I'm going to share these in just a sec. All right, just 2 more seconds on this. Wow, really high levels of participation. This is great, everyone. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. I'm going to share the results. So we can see on screen here just very quickly, it looks like roughly 35% of the group here have some kind of formal program in place. Some have some informal, and there's a handful that have no program at all. Of people that do have a program in place, it seems like the majority have some levels of engagement. So this is great because this is going to allow us to give those folks some extra tips for how to increase those levels of engagement. And then we've got kind of mixed results on where we can focus today, but I think a lot of this is going to be focused on like ROI, getting leadership buy-in, measuring impact, and then ultimately, how do we raise engagement levels across our rewards and recognition program? So that's great. Thank you, everyone, for having that on screen here. I appreciate your participation. And with that, we will go ahead and jump into our first question. So the first section of this, I want to dive into ROI specifically for rewards and recognition. And just to kind of set the stage, I'm going to share a couple of common challenges for rewards and recognition that we can potentially help solve. So these are kind of like common business challenges that I hear about. I know our panel's heard about as well. So just some very quick stats from HR.com on why businesses introduce rewards and recognition strategies in the first place. So these are the top 6 business advantages of introducing a rewards and recognition program. And again, this is directly from HR professionals, just like everyone on this call here. So help employees feel valued, boost satisfaction and morale, improve company culture, increase retention, improve sense of belonging, and increase engagement and effort. So now that we've kind of set the stage for the why, let's jump into the first question. So for our panel, what inspired you in the first place to implement a rewards and recognition program? And were there any like key industry or business challenges that you were looking to solve for in that? And I will pass this question over to Jody first.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes. So we, of course, COVID was hard. But we at EBCH were also kind of going through a larger culture change initiative that was kind of a 3 turned into 4-year process with COVID in the middle. And so we were kind of doing pieces and parts of a recognition and rewards program. We had things in place like a Positive Thursday event that was happening once a month. We had an annual recognition for years of service. So we had little pieces and parts, but Rochelle had come to me and we had talked extensively about wanting to have something a lot more robust and a lot more comprehensive that we could kind of really sink our teeth into. So we started out by doing a ton of research. I mean, we spent months and months on research. I had read 1,501 ways to reward your employees. Took us a long time to get through that. And we were like, so many great ideas were in there. And we're like, oh, things that we wanted to do and what could we implement? And we thought that we were extremely intelligent and way ahead of the game and created this whole like comprehensive reward and recognition program that was all paper-based. Like we created our own EBCH reward box and a catalog to go with it. And we were starting to figure out like how we were going to roll out to staff, and then realized like, oh my gosh, like somebody has to do all of this work. Like this is going to be extremely time consuming for someone to do this reward and recognition program. And so Rochelle is a bit of an insomniac and happened to be scrolling through the interwebs one night and came across this electronic platform that was basically doing what we thought we were so smart in creating on paper, and came in all excited the next day and showed it to me. It was like, look at this, like they're doing electronically what we were trying to do via our paper system. And like, let's call them and schedule a demo. And so we basically called and scheduled a demo with Bucketlist, and the rest was really history for us. We found it to be just an all-encompassing solution that we were really looking for, and we could really customize it to what we wanted it to be.
That's great. So it sounds like you identified that there was a need, right? And then you kind of built the foundation on your own and then ended up finding Bucketlist, which is amazing. But I think the key piece there is that, you identified there were some things that you needed to solve for. And so maybe I'll toss this question to Rochelle. Was there anything specific, like a catalyst or something that you thought you saw and you thought, okay, we need to fix this as an organization, or we need to improve this?
Yeah, thanks, Curtis. I think one of the things that Jody had mentioned is we were starting these kind of initiatives, a lot of it too, back in 2018, we actually started doing annual employee engagement surveying with our staff. So, what best to try to figure out how you can be better as an employer than to seek the feedback from, those in the trenches, if you will. So when we started that in 18, I will say it was pretty tough. You go into that knowing that you're not here, but certainly you get your scores and you realize you're kind of here. So being transparent, we ranked in the 13th percentile in 2018. So we kind of looked at that. We took a lot of the surveying, suggestions of staff. We realized that through a lot of the things that Jody and I had compiled that we were doing, there was a significant portion of our staff who actually had never heard of our monthly birthday cards or the annual awards dinners that we were doing. And so, it really started kind of compiling, look, we really got to put this together and solidify what we're doing and where we're going. We continued that surveying process. And so what was interesting for Jody and I as we started to kind of formulate these and found Bucket List is let me back up. We didn't even implement Bucket List until 2022. And before we got there, we were still at the 59th percentile. So, wait to come panel, because some exciting news on where we're at today, and Bucket List has been a large part of that.
Awesome. So I guess what I heard you say there is, you identified primarily through surveying that there was a really great opportunity to kind of lift the overall morale of the organization. And it also sounds like even though you had some pieces in place, maybe the communication around what you were doing wasn't fantastic because there were people who didn't know about certain aspects of what you did have in place. So, okay, that's awesome. And Zach, from your perspective, same question.
Yeah, so I think we had a similar process to Jody and Rochelle. We looked at our current state, and at Cameron, we have just under 700 associates, and the previous platform that we were using, it just wasn't being used very much. I think in a 12-month period, we had just over 1,000 recognitions per year with that platform, and we just didn't feel like the platform was very inclusive. And so it did have redeeming options with it, but they had manual processes in the background that got cafe coupons to our associates that were recognized. And so again, the manual processes were not very efficient, and it was not very responsive to our staff. So they might get recognized and then get their cafe coupon, 30 days later. And the cafe coupons were not inclusive across our organization, because here at Cameron, obviously we have a main hospital site, but then we also have different medical group practices and urgent care clinics that are offsite. And so those cafe coupons were not very valuable to those associates. So again, we were looking for something that was going to be a little bit more inclusive and have redeeming options that we felt like were impactful for our on-site and off-site associates. And then another thing that was really big for us is we want to make sure that was inclusive from the standpoint that our associates would have multiple ways to access the platform. And so the nice thing that we found about Bucket List is obviously you can use it with your computer and whatnot, but it also has an app that's available with it that can be pulled up on your iPad and your cell phones. And so it's very easy for all of our associates, whether on-site, off-site, at home, whatnot, to access the program. And we've been with Bucket List for a short period of time. Our go live was in May. And we've seen incredible usage since go live. So we're projecting about 8,000 recognitions over a 12-month period. So that's like an 8-fold increase from the previous platform that we were using. And so again, being inclusive, having a program that captures points and has impactful redeeming options were some of the challenges that we were kind of looking to overcome with Bucket List.
Awesome. Thanks for walking us through that journey. And obviously, you've had a lot of success seeing like the direct increase in recognition, which is fantastic. And I think that's a topic that maybe we'll dive into deeper later on, as well as you had a program in place before, you had a platform in place before, but you were seeing low levels of engagement. And I think a lot of our audience today said that they maybe do have a program, but they're seeing kind of mixed results. And so, it would be great to dive into whether like maybe there are specific features, for example, that you utilize to lift engagement. Maybe you engaged managers, supervisors. I heard you say, it was more inclusive. So you were potentially giving rewards that were more valuable to employees, but also that individuals could connect in different ways. So, not everyone's sitting behind a computer, right? Like they got to be able to access from their mobile device. So all of that really, really great thoughts and advice. Thank you. Let's jump into our next question here. This one also came up in that initial poll that we asked our audience. So again, I want to kind of just start off with a quick stat. So according to HR.com, 43% of organizations lack reward program capabilities due to a lack of leadership buy-in or the necessary tools and processes. 36% also say that budget is an obstacle. And so certainly we can tackle budget too. But with this in mind for the group, how did you present the need for this to your leadership teams? And are there any tips you can provide for our audience today for, how to get buy-in from leadership, or how to position a new platform or program like this to, kind of convince the other folks? Maybe you're convinced, but how do we get everyone else on board as well? And maybe I'll pass that one to you first, Rochelle.
Sure. One of the things that Jody and I took upon going through our entire facility, and it was like, okay, what are we currently doing? What would we like to see? And what do the staff want? So that we had an ability to make sure, as Zach had shared, that we wanted that inclusiveness. What were they asking for through our last 3 years worth of surveying? And so we kind of compiled all of that. Our goal was to really, put down the pro forma. I hate to say this, but yes, the budget is always, when you move to your CEO or executives, and I'm actually on that executive panel, but I will say it's one of those things that it is important. It's a priority, right? It's got to come into play. But I told Jody, let's look at this from what are we already currently spending, right? Because a lot of times if you're not tackling it with this is all brand new money, I think it makes a large difference. So we took last couple of years worth of accounting and payables and what we had been doing, and then took the survey data. And, that was kind of a large component of part of our pro forma package. If we're going to do these annual surveys, you've got to commit to them. And if they're an investment as well, right? So Press Ganey, that's an investment. Most of those contracts are 3 years. So in combination of that, it's like, let's take these dollars we've spent, the survey data, put it all together, what we're spending. We kind of did our best ballpark of what we thought we would like to add or incorporate based on employee surveying. And to be honest with you, Bucketlist was actually really instrumental in doing this because our representatives provided some extra budgeting worksheets, spreadsheets, kind of got us on the straight and narrow. We were probably a little larger than we needed to be to start. And so we really solidified all that and we're able to kind of bring that in. We're fortunate here at EBCH. Our CEO is very active in the employee engagement. She is very involved in knowing our statistics, the engagement scores. It is a priority for her. So we are very fortunate that we have that here with the internal support, and from her, it then went to the board. And so, I'm actually really excited that this January, just earlier in the month, presented to our current board where our engagement scores lie, and my level of appreciation and thanks to them, because if we didn't have the support from our board and our CEO, we certainly wouldn't be with Bucketlist or where we even are today with being in the 95th percentile for employee engagement. So.
Well, that's a little bit of an improvement. That's amazing. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Very, very cool. So if I had to summarize, I think what I heard you say is, you had a supportive leader, which is great. That obviously puts you in a really awesome position right from the get-go, but you really rooted this in data. So you looked at, what is our current spend, right? What are our current engagement levels like, our survey results? How do we think we can impact that if we just add a little bit more budget here or a little bit more budget here? So I think that's really smart. And I heard you mention there that the team here helped you with that budget presentation, which is great. And I think that's a conversation we often have is like, hey, I love this. This is wonderful. But how do I know how much I'm supposed to spend per employee per year, let's say, on rewards, right? That's a big question. And so making sure that we kind of work through that process together to help set you up for success, I think is a key part of the process and partnership. So I'm glad to hear that works so well. And again, we can dive in further on like, what does a great budget look like towards the end of the conversation today, time permitting. Zach, over to you.
Yeah, advice that I would share is obviously with Jody and Rochelle, feedback from frontline staff and data, that always goes a long way with leaders. But I would try to find a way to connect your leadership team with frontline staff members. And so at Cameron, we have a committee called a Service Excellence Committee, and that is a committee that has some of our most senior leaders within our organization, but then it also has our frontline staff members, and they were able to hear firsthand. Our leaders were able to hear firsthand exactly where we were at in terms of rewards and recognitions and what opportunities we had. And I felt like of anything that we did, even more than data, just our leaders hearing firsthand from frontline staff where we were at with our rewards and recognition programs and the opportunities that we had was the most impactful thing for us. I think when looking at Bucketlist, also, having a vision for how we were going to grow with it in the future. And I think a big thing for us, it was important for us to find a rewards and recognition platform that was a right fit for us, someone that we saw as a long-term partner. Because I think, as we've discussed, Curtis, the last thing that we would want to do is, go live with a platform, use that platform for 2 years, and then have to take it away or whatnot. And so, when we were talking with our leadership team, we we're going through our demos. Again, having a vision for how we could grow with that platform, different things that we could do in the future, and making sure that we saw this organization as a partner of ours that was going to be just as engaged as what we are. So.
Awesome. Love that. Thank you so much. I wanted to just address a quick comment that came through in the chat there. So just so that everyone knows, our panel today, yeah, absolutely in full transparency, our bucket list customers, but this can be applied to, any program that you're trying to build, whether you choose to partner with a third party or you build it on your own. And so, the intention here, of course, is we're going to continue to talk about strategies. And if you've got specific questions related to like, okay, how do we measure the impact of this? I've heard already from Rochelle, it's like looking at our survey results, for example. So we found a need through survey results, we introduced a program, and we saw a lift in those survey results. I think that's a great example of how you can show success and measure the impact. But we're going to get more into that in a moment here. And I just want to encourage our attendees, of course, if you have questions, please don't be shy. This is your opportunity to jump in. Like I said from the get-go, the more questions you ask, the more engagement you have, the more opportunities our panel is going to have to answer those questions. All right, let's move on to our next topic here. Actually, perfect. Okay, great. So let's move on to section 2. Now, this is all about measuring the impact of rewards and recognition. So, the survey results was a really great example. I think one of the best ways that you can think about measuring impact is ultimately to look at performance as well. So if you build the structure of your program to center on and incentivize the behaviors that you want to see from employees, like maybe creating formalized awards around that, for example, you're going to see an uptick in those behaviors. I'll give you a quick example. If you're struggling with attendance, if you have like formal awards around perfect attendance, you'll see an improvement in that specific behavior. So creating formalized awards around that, I think, is really valuable. But I want to also talk about some other common things that we look at when we're talking about measuring impact. So the other would be engagement levels. This is something that I've heard from our panel today, from everyone so far, is like, if we have a program in place, what are the engagement levels like? Are people participating in it? Is it what we consider kind of effective? Is there a buzz? Are people talking about it at those water cool conversations? Budgets also come up, right? So let's think about that. Is the budget that we've allocated for rewards actually being used? That means, are people earning rewards? Are they excited about those rewards? Are they rewards that fire them up? Zach, you explained before that you had a system where rewards weren't really being utilized across the entire organization. And then finally, I would say, are managers involved? This is really important. Often leaders are the ones that kind of set the expectation and precedent in regards to engagement with a rewards and recognition strategy. So these are some topics I want us to kind of think about as we move into this section. And this is specifically talking about measuring the impact. So for our panel, what is the best way to measure the impact of rewards and recognition? And how have you been able to demonstrate the value of this program to others within your organization? And Rochelle, I'm going to come back to you on this. I know you talked about surveying before, but any other things that you can recommend related to this topic?
You're wanting me to continue, or you want Jody?
I'm going to go to you, Rochelle, on this one.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of measured ours out. So, backing up a little bit, so some of our viewers today can understand. With us starting our initiative with the Bucketlist platform, I think one of the biggest things, and actually Angela the question that literally just got that posed right now is huge. And that was one of the things that we found when we were going through our surveying results is, a lot of what we were doing as an organization had been stuff that we had done for a long time, right? I don't know that there was ever a conversation to, hey, is this working? So that's where some of that surveying data comes into play. As change happens, you want to make sure you're getting that from your staff as well. And so we kind of looked at what could be improved. How do people want to be recognized? The beauty that we have found with Bucketlist, the beauty that we found with this is that those rewards can be based on what an employee needs. So, be that feed, for example, the file feed where you can do all the thanks in the main page. If you're an employee who that is being honored in front of 100+ employees is not your thing, you can opt out. So those, you're not going to circulate, but you'll still get the points. You still get the acknowledgement. I can reward Jody in private versus it going across the feed where everyone can see the acknowledgement. So I think it tapped into a little bit of what each person's needs were as well. And then it wasn't the facility saying, hey, this is what we've decided your 5-year anniversary award should be, or hey, thanks for being here for 10 years, this is what we're giving you. Because the points convert to a platform that allow people to select what they want to be recognized with. Whether it's donating to nonprofits, whether it is, purchasing gift cards, which are, nationwide. We've even created our own tab, so we're able to really secure, an impact with staff because they can get company swag, they can get gift cards for our local businesses or some of our local nonprofits, the food shelf. We've got just a large variety, and so I think it really hit all levels of what staff are looking for from an engagement perspective and rewarding perspective.
Just a couple of quick follow-ups on that. So, first follow-up is, did you do any surveying of employees or anything like that to find out, what rewards would be valuable to them? So I'm curious on that. And then the second question would be, do you see any trends in terms of the rewards that your employees actually want and actually, get as part of this program? Is there anything there that you find, like maybe a correlation?
Yeah, I can take that. We did a lot of surveying through SurveyMonkey of our staff before we started this platform, just to kind of ask about what those, what people thought about reward and recognition, how they wanted to be impacted with the reward and recognition program, and what they would like to see offered in that program. And so we were kind of doing that surveying a little bit when we were trying to create our own paper program. So we had a lot of that data when we went into the Bucketlist platform already. So yes, we were doing additional surveying over and above, like just looking at our press gaining stats to really ask employees what they wanted and make it customizable. And we do see a lot of trends within what people, get their redemptions for. And we have people actually coming to us constantly and say like, oh, can you see about adding this to the platform? Can you see about adding that company to the platform or this experience or, and that's the beauty of Bucketlist, is that we're able to make it that customizable and do those things.
Awesome. And even if we put Bucketlist aside for a second, was there any specific examples that you heard from employees like, hey, it'd be really cool if we could do this thing, or really cool if we could have experienced this as a reward? Were there any examples that jumped to mind?
We had a lot of staff actually just come out asking if we could do some sort of more of a points, and could we have, if we're going to have a catalog or an opportunity, could it be stuff that we can make selections from? And so I think that's one of the things when we were looking, and transparency, we found Bucketlist, we stumbled upon Bucketlist, and it was others we found before Bucketlist. So we went through and demoed multiple sites, and the beauty of it is what we were looking for almost kind of fit right into Bucketlist, because as we're growing and our staff are asking, we've been able to reach back out to Bucketlist, and you guys have been great about saying, yes, we can do this. Or, we had a little difficulty in some of our report writing features to begin with, and now we've gotten, kind of some upgrades to those platforms. So I think it makes kind of a good partnership with us, as we're looking to do things, you have the ability to kind of grow with employers, and that's been huge to us as well. And we are seeing it. We're resurveying staff. Are you finding a need for this? I think our percentage of usage in Bucketlist is higher than your national average scores are for people a year and a half into the program. I think we're still at like 88% participation. I think it speaks volumes when, we have physicians that are using it to recognize our frontline staff.
Love it.
In our emergency department and on our med surg floor, you're getting a ton of peer-to-peer, which is really just enhancing. It's, not anymore is it the day of, this is just my job, I'm doing it. Like, people are acknowledging, hey, I know you're busy today. Thanks for, jumping in and helping with our department. And so we've noticed that it's actually increased even a ton of our departments that might have worked more siloed before. The platform has really brought a lot of our departments together.
I think that's a really good point, like breaking down those communication silos. And, for anyone who's on the call today that maybe works in a remote or a distributed environment, right? I'm working from home, like probably a lot of people on the call are today as well. I think it's a really solid point, is that having kind of a central way to communicate and bring visibility into the recognition that's happening in your organization is so important, because often recognition might happen between you and I, right? But how do we communicate that great work more broadly across the org? So I think these are things to think about. And then also from a rewards perspective, I've heard this point here that everyone likes to be rewarded a little differently. So I think having choice, asking employees, simply just asking them, like, what rewards are valuable to you, right? Is it something like a day at a spa? Is it a gift card to your favorite vendor? Is it paid time off, right? Like, it's going to be a little different for everyone. So asking those questions is really valuable. Zach, what about your perspective on this?
Yeah, I would say in terms of like just formal data, obviously we've been with Bucketlist. Our go live was May, but we're going to be looking at employee turnover. That's going to be a big data point for us. We also have a couple different engagement surveys that'll be coming up in a couple of months, and we also do a culture of patient safety survey with our associates. And so I think in terms of like just specific data, obviously we're going to be looking at those 3 points to determine, like a measurable impact of Bucketlist. But I would say one of the things specifically about Bucketlist that I like is the dashboard that's available to leaders. So we have a leadership meeting monthly, and once a quarter, I present the dashboard to our leadership team. And it's a great way to view information. We can see what our engagement levels are. We can see how many recognitions have been given out in specific months. We can see who's being recognized. We can also see the leaders within our organization that are doing the best job of recognizing their associates. And it's not a surprise within our organization that the departments that have the highest utilization of recognitions and Bucketlist are also our most highest performing departments. And so that's not a surprise. And so I really like the dashboard. And then the other thing that Bucketlist was able to help us with is we have 7 core values here at Cameron, and we were able to incorporate those core values into the recognition platforms. And so we can go down and see in a pie chart, we can see, hey, what values are being recognized the most? Is it excellence? Is it respect? Is it stewardship? And that also kind of gives us data and information on, what are areas that maybe need more attention. I think we've talked about this a little bit, Curtis, in terms of making sure that, we're finding ways to not only recognize our clinical staff in healthcare setting, but also how are we recognizing our non-clinical staff like EVS, finance, and those types of things. And so some of the data that we're pulling out of Bucketlist is helping us in that regard as well.
Yeah,
Really, really
if
smart.
If I can touch just right on what Zach had to say, we've noticed that significantly in our facility that has really driven a lot of positive morale with our staff. And again, kind of that, cross-departmental work is, oftentimes when for us hospital setting, for example, you're spending a ton of time getting your HCAPs, or a lot of your reviews that come in are going to be all rewarding or acknowledging those patients, the staff that are engaging with the patients. And I think that Bucketlist has really been able to do, non-clinical, the facilities departments, your accounting departments, HR, we all know that it's not usually a department where a lot of compliments are flying in. But it is, it's just really kind of made an awesome ability for the facility to communicate. I think people are seeing the value in seeing value and respecting other people's jobs and their duties. And you can see that coming across in the rewards and recognition platform. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for adding that on. So I think, if I had to summarize what I'm hearing from sort of both of you on this topic, it's, thinking about things like retention, right? Are we seeing an improvement in our retention rates? It's looking at overall engagement and productivity. So, if the groups that are recognizing each other in higher volume are experiencing higher levels of productivity, that's a great thing that we can show to the organization in terms of value. And then also, this is maybe slightly less tangible, but I think it's worth kind of summarizing again, is shining a spotlight on people that don't necessarily get the spotlight regularly, right? So creating a program that feels equitable for everyone. Great examples from healthcare that you provided. Another example I provide is like in the tech space, for example, often salespeople or customer service people are highlighted with recognition because they're customer facing, right? But things like developers, engineers, people who are, not in the spotlight all the time, don't always get recognized. And so being able to have some kind of mechanism to recognize those people that aren't always in the spotlight, I think is extremely valuable and makes everyone feel like they're all part of the same team.
Yeah, and you can circulate, just to reference Zach too. We've seen it in our retention data. I won't even go where 3 years ago, I think everybody was. And it's not that Bucketlist has come in and saved our facility. There's been a lot of hard work from the top down that's gone into this platform. So I want to be honest with that. But I think there has been a significant impact from us adding Bucketlist and all of what it has done from an ROI perspective in just overall recognition in general. We're looking at our turnover rates are at 1%, fairly unheard of in a hospital setting right now today. So I think between that, our employee engagement scores, I mean, there has definitely been a significant value to the implementation.
And, I think the real kind of key through line through that is, again, like put Bucketlist aside for a second. This is really about showing value or showing your employees that you value them, right? And this was the question that we asked right off the top, like, how does recognition make you feel? And if somebody's staying with the organization, that tells me, like, if your retention rates have improved, that they feel valued, they feel like their work is being seen, they feel like they're part of the team. And so I think really that gets to the core of what recognition is all about, right? People generally want to feel like they're doing a good job. I think people generally put pride in their work. And so if you recognize them and say, hey, we see you, we know that you're doing a great job, we appreciate you, that's going to create loyalty, right? Regardless of whether or not you use like a formal platform for that or whatever, it's giving that recognition to individuals to show them that their work is being seen, that I think that's the true value. Awesome. Okay, let's move to the next question. This is a bit of a fun one. I always like to ask, what are some really great rewards and recognition stories? So for the panel, is there an example that you can think of that comes to mind where, you've been able to have like a really cool story that maybe you shared with the rest of the organization or something related to rewards and recognition? And Zach, I'll go to you first on this one.
Yeah, I'll go back to the clinical versus non-clinical staff. Here at Cameron, I've been here 3 years. This is the cleanest healthcare facility I've ever been in, and our environmental service team is just does a fantastic job. I mean, they clean everything here. They clean the walls, they clean the cracks in the elevators. Their HCAP scores, press gating scores are tremendous. But the frontline staff didn't always feel like they were being recognized for some of the work that they were doing, and so was at a department meeting here recently, and I think one of the coolest things I've heard out of Bucketlist so far is just how much they're using it within their department, how much they're being recognized by associates outside of their department, and Bucketlist has really helped us make sure that our EVS team feels valued, supported, and how much that we appreciate their work. And so that's been the neatest story. And just anecdotally, what I'll share, again, I feel like I'm getting older in age. I'm not as tech savvy, but GIFs, I'm pronouncing that right, Curtis, right? GIFs.
There's it's a debated topic, GIFs or GIFs, right? Like, I don't know. And for the audience, hey, what's your take on this? GIFs or GIFs? What do you go with?
Yeah, I have no idea how it's pronounced, but man, those things are used in the recognition platform of Bucketlist, wow. And those things get talked about so much. And I remember when I first saw those things, I was kind of like, how are these going to be used? Is this, how professional is it or whatnot? But the amount of GIFs, if I'm pronouncing that right, that get utilized in Bucketlist, sometimes those get talked about more than the recognition. They're a conversation starter, kind of a water cooler conversation starter. And so it's been neat to see how those have been impactful. Such a small thing, but those have been very impactful for our associates as well.
It's part of the meme culture, right? Like everyone speaks that language to some degree. So yeah, that's great. For Jody and Rochelle, anything you want to add to this one?
Yeah, I think a couple of things on our end, and we kind of touched on it already, but the providers, I think traditionally providers are the hardest ones to get on board with anything. And we got so excited the first time we saw some of our providers using the platform and recognizing people. It was just very impactful, I think, for all of us. And then secondly, we launched with Bucketlist in August of 2022. So in December of 2023, we held our first ever annual EBCH Awards ceremony. And so we went back all the way to the start of the platform of Bucketlist. We do several different rewards or awards on our Bucketlist platform. And so we were able to physically recognize our staff in the space, give them certificates, for everybody who was employees of the month, employees of the quarter, and we gave out our first ever EBCH Pillar Awards that again go back to our core value pillars. And there was lots of tears in the eyes of our employees that were recognized with those big, larger awards that they didn't know were coming to them, and it was a big surprise. And I mean, I just think that that was really, really impactful to see people get that emotional of being recognized.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, so go ahead, Rochelle.
One of the things we added too, just, for the viewers is, the beauty is not just about somebody doing a good job that gets some points and can go get a gift card. I mean, we've really expounded our entire organization to use this. So for example, our monthly safety meetings, it was one way of incorporating safety into this. So we have a monthly safety award. We let our safety committee find, or nominate either one employee or a department on, who's impacting or following our safety protocols. And so, there's an award and points obviously that go to that. So it's like, I think the more you can kind of pull your organization together, and it's probably a lot of things you may be doing, but now you're just kind of running everything through an actual platform where not just that employee is also seeing it, but part of the problem with rewarding and recognition is if everybody else doesn't see it, it's not happening. And so I think just that platform of everything being in one area where your organization is seeing the impact it is having, even if it's not you directly, they're seeing what you're doing for others, and on a pretty regular basis, that too has got a huge impact.
Yeah, all really great points on this. And so if I had to kind of tie it all together, I think what I'm hearing is, there's a lot of value in recognizing those that don't always receive recognition for the great work that they've done. And so again, kind of shining a light on that. But then also the more broad communication of when that recognition happens. And so for Jody and Rochelle, part of that is you had this awards event, right? Which, is really cool. You can reflect kind of on the year in recognition, highlight specific individuals, but then also having a centralized way to communicate for even those like day-to-day recognitions. And having a platform for that is great. Obviously that provides a vehicle, but for those that don't, there are other ways you can communicate. So even things like a newsletter, right? Like maybe send out a monthly newsletter and highlight some really great work that individuals have done. I've talked to some organizations that have like a board where people can come in and like post sticky notes of like, hey, Jody did a really great job on this, right? I think just finding ways to like highlight good work and bring attention to it is so important, because you're right. If recognition is just between us, it doesn't show the rest of the organization the great work that is often being done by everyone across the org. And it's a great way to kind of lift everyone up together. So I think, yeah, visibility, absolutely, and communication, extremely important on this one. Awesome. Okay. Let's move into our third section. We're going to talk about strategies to build a compelling rewards and recognition program. And I think this is going to be a really great topic because, a lot of people kind of approach this in their own unique way. And so I'm interested to hear from the panel your thoughts on this. The idea with this question is to have it be kind of just an open dialogue. So for the panel, feel free to jump in at any point with your strategies, kind of piggyback off each other. For our attendees, this is a really great one for you to jump in on. So if you have questions on this specific topic, like, hey, we're thinking about rewards and recognition, we want to build it on our own internally, or we want to partner with a program for that, whatever it is, ask your questions now. So like, this is where we can ask, like, how do we get people engaged? How do we get managers to participate? Because I have some that are great and some that won't participate off the get-go, right? These are the types of questions that we want to be thinking about in this section. So let's pass it on over to the panel here. You all have had really successful programs, and I've heard you say like, oh, it's because we've got Bucketlist and that's all great. But I want to put that aside for a second and talk about specific strategies that you're working on with your employees, even if you didn't have like a formalized platform, let's say, to get people involved. And so I'm going to pass this one over to you first, Zach, if you've gotten any ideas.
Yeah, so a couple things. I talked earlier about our SEC, it's our Service Excellence Committee. And again, that has our senior leaders and frontline staff as a part of it. And as like a subgroup of our SEC, we kind of have a rewards and recognition task group. And again, this is all frontline staff leaders throughout our organization. They meet monthly, and their goal is, how can we strengthen our rewards and recognition program? And so I think one thing that's helped with us is it's felt very much like a grassroots type movement. It hasn't felt like something that was necessarily pushed from the top down. Now our leaders are very involved, engaged, and utilizing the platform. But this definitely did have kind of like a grassroots kind of feel for us. And again, a lot of the stuff that we're implementing is coming from that task group. And again, while we use Bucketlist, that's not the only thing. That's, it's kind of the platform for rewards and recognition platform, but we're building upon that. We do have monthly award winners that we actually go out and we meet with those associates, thank them for the recognition that they received, and take their photo. And then starting this year, we're going to have quarterly winners that are based on our values, and we're going to have like some type of like little meeting or reception for them with food provided, and we're going to reward a winner based on each of our 7 values. And again, that will be an event that takes place with our senior leaders. And again, that's kind of made possible through the platform of Bucketlist. But again, going back to the dashboard that Bucketlist has, again, presenting that at the leadership meeting that we have, we can see, which leaders are engaged, which leaders are not. We don't necessarily have to call anybody out. We just have to throw the data up on the screen. So that's been very effective for us. And then we also have a week in review. It's a newsletter that's sent out every week. And again, we have different things on there for associates to download the Bucketlist app, or pictures of associates that have been recognized. We're pulling out some of the best recognitions on there. And so I think any rewards and recognition program, I think awareness is the biggest thing. Finding a bunch of ways to be creative, to get the message out, to create awareness, not only with your leaders, but your frontline staff. Because again, a lot of our recognitions come from our leaders to frontline associates, but we want our associates recognizing each other as well. That's where a lot of team strengthening comes from. And so I think awareness is the big thing that we're focusing on, and obviously still working on.
Love it. So yeah, awareness and communication. I think that's definitely a theme that I'm hearing here. So that's great. For Jody and Rochelle, from your side, thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, I think regardless of what anyone's looking to do, I think the most important piece is, to really have a lot of meaning and thought behind what you're looking to do from your organization, and make sure you've got the committed parties involved. No employee wants to take a survey if they feel like they don't by action see some of the results, that will become meaningless to them. So I think for us as an organization, we spent a lot of time going through a lot of what we had heard through our surveying, but then we went and started in a shift. Like I said, we got the CEO involved, we got the board involved. We've been working with our team leaders. So we meet with all of our team leader level, which is our managerial level. We do a big meeting once a month, and we used that as an educational platform. And we took it a step further to really kind of tie that recognition piece in. And instead of doing once a year annual performances, we went to quarterly performance reviews. And I spent almost 4 months building that with my team leader level group. And so I think where that's important is there's a section in there that holds them accountable to being part of this process. And they helped build it so they understand where the accountability comes in. And of course, in working with the CEO, where we had a ton of support with all of that. So I think, when you have that, and they were being a part of building the platform for those evaluations, everybody dreads that one time a year. You sit down. I mean, the person giving it is like, oh, this is awkward. And the person sitting there is like, what's going to happen? So we just moved it to more of an informal, it's a front and back page. And it's just, you're doing the job, the dependability, but we really started to focus on soft skills, employee culture. Are you following the pillars, the mission, the vision of the facility? Somebody either has the technical components to do the job or not, or you can address that at the time. But I think just focusing on more of an organization and where you're going is what we did. And so tying that to performance evaluations has also really enhanced that engagement, and of course the recognition piece, because the staff are seeing it as well. So we gave kind of tools for our leaders to be able to know how to sit down and do these reviews, how to acknowledge when things are really well. Bucketlist was one opportunity for them to add to that platform.
Really interesting. So I think you probably saw the question that came through there related to performance reviews. So does anyone here on the panel actually take, like, I don't know, number of recognitions that somebody's received, or the quality of a recognition, whatever it is, and build that into those performance reviews and have leaders say, hey, like, I see that you were recognized. 10 times this quarter, you know, the benchmark is 5 times, whatever. Like, do you do anything
Yeah.
like that in these sessions?
We have a level of our executive leadership team, our C-suite, oversee obviously all of our team leader level. So I'd go to Jody often and have her run reports for every executive, and it has every one of their leaders that they oversee, and it shows just how engaged they are or maybe aren't, and then that executive handles that from a team leader and a performance perspective. So but you have to have that kind of a process, right? You know, I mean, these have to be done with intent. You know, we kind of have this as a Jody and I joking. I mean, it's just nobody's looking to have, you know, people do cartwheels down a hallway or drink a glass of Kool-Aid. Like, you want this to be meaningful as a part of your organization. And then by action, your staff are seeing that, that you're really following through on it too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Very quickly, just looking at time, we've gone almost at the hour, which is unbelievable. These always go really fast. For the panel, quick question. Are you able to stay on a little longer to field some questions if they come in Q&A?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. For our attendees, I know that there is an HRCI credit as part of this. So I want to make sure that everyone has that, just in case anyone does have to jump off. Obviously, encourage you to stick around if you're able to, but I'm just going to post the credit in the chat here, just so nobody misses it. Okay, so it's there in the chat for you. If you need to hop off, no worries. But because our panel is willing and able to stay, we're going to continue with the rest of the presentation today. So we'll go for a few more minutes. Any other thoughts around specific strategies? I heard like formalized awards around safety was a really great example. Anything else like that you guys want to add?
I would just throw in like a couple more things. I would say rollout, like how we rolled it out. Like, we had whatever platform you're going to use, like really consider how you're going to roll it out to your staff. Like, we really spent a lot of time and effort there. And then also like using this as a centralized tool. So we've incorporated everything into it. And Rochelle and I have even like helped each other to remember to do that when it's like, oh, let's you know, get chamber bucks or gift cards for this certain thing. And it's like, nope, let's do a bucket list points. Like, use the platform, like whatever platform it is going to be. It's just making sure that we're constantly remembering to use it as a tool.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's great. And Zach, anything else from your side?
Just kind of going to the previous question, it has been enrolled into our annual performance reviews. I love Jody and Rochelle's idea about the performance reviews being a little bit more frequent. That's a great idea. The first section on our performance reviews is service excellence, and that is specifically based on different recognitions and feedback from patients and whatnot that our associates have received. So that has been rolled in and encompassed into our HR process there. And all of our leaders have the access to view not only how many recognitions someone has received, but then also how many recognitions that they're giving as well. So those are two big pieces of information that are kind of incorporated in our performance evaluations.
Awesome. Okay, so moving on here, for this one, I just want to be like really concise. If for our panelists, if you had to give very quick advice for any of our attendees today on the most important things that they need to consider when building a rewards and recognition strategy. So if it's visibility, if it's awareness, rooting it in data, whatever those things are from your perspective, what would you say are the most important things for our audience to consider? And Jody and Rochelle, I'll start with you.
I think just your staff have to be a huge part of it. The more they feel like they're being part of the development of the process, the more they're going to feel that they want to contribute to it, the more you're going to see the success with it. The employees that are out there on a day-to-day doing a different level of work than sometimes more of administrative or an upper level position. It's different when you have somebody coming and saying, hey, what can we do together? What do you think is going to help this facility or this organization grow? Versus me coming in and saying, hey, this is what we've decided to do. And this is, nobody wants to have that kind of a setting. And I think when it's so much, the value of your rewards and recognition is truly based on your staff feeling it, I think you really have to be meaningful in incorporating them. And, also be transparent. not every idea is going to be an idea that can come forward. And I think that's okay. I think the problem that we have is we don't, do the closed loop communication. And so oftentimes we don't share why those things can't move forward, or, hey, maybe they're going in a parking lot right now, but we'll revisit them in a year. So I think it's just trying to, have a little bit of meaning when those conversations happen, and really incorporating, don't feel like you have to do everything at once. Sometimes you get in and you get inspired with these kind of, videos or webinars or conferences. And I think we just try to make sure we're coming back, and how can this affect the organization, the most of the organization, so that people also don't, get these little nuances that start for a month and in 6 months they're faded. Those are the things you want to avoid.
Super smart. Jody, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. Like, just not making it be the flavor of the day, and then also just really considering there's probably a lot of things that you're already doing, but how do you just package that together into just a more of a comprehensive package, so that you can have that really clear communication and continue to remind people about what you have going on in the area of reward and recognition.
Awesome. And Zach, over to you.
I agree with everything that they're saying. I think anything that's led and inspired, so to speak, by the frontline staff is super important. But I think the most powerful thing is somehow connecting your leaders with your frontline staff and having them be able to move forward with different ideas or different platforms. That's where I've seen the most value, and that's been the most powerful thing that I've been a part of, is connecting your leaders with frontline staff, and so many good things come out of that.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. Very quickly, I just want to share a little bit more info about Bucketlist, and then we're going to move to any Q&A for those that are still here. We still have quite a large number of attendees, so thank you for staying late. Just very quickly, we talked a little bit about Bucketlist today. We are a #1 ranked employee rewards and recognition platform. So if you're thinking about introducing a rewards and recognition strategy, we can help make that easy for you. We can automate your processes, give you a vehicle for 360 recognition, and give you some really cool best rewards in the industry, I would say. So if you're looking to implement something new, or maybe you've got something in place today and you kind of want to evolve it, we'd love to have a chat and maybe give you some ideas. I'm just going to launch a quick poll related to this. So if you are curious, you want to learn more about what we do, just simply click yes on that poll, and we'll go ahead and make sure that that we contact you with some additional info. So I'll launch that here now. Should all see that on the screen. So I'll give everyone just 30 seconds here to answer that. And then we'll get into Q&A. So as we're answering the poll, if there's anybody here that's got some questions they want to ask for our panel, now's your opportunity. Again, I recognize that we are a few minutes over and people are starting to drop off. So that's okay if we don't have any additional questions, but don't be shy. If you've got something that you want to ask, we're happy to address it now. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. There we go. And we'll move to any final questions here. So anyone who is still left, we've still got quite a few people on. Thank you guys again for staying over. Are there any additional questions that we'd like to ask for our panelists today? Again, they're the experts. This is your time to pick their brain. We did have some questions submitted beforehand as well. So if we don't have anything submitted live here, I will go ahead and just make sure that we tackle at least 1 or 2 of these really quickly.
We might have lost our camera, but we are still here. Sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Yeah, so this is a question we sort of touched on, but I'll toss it out again here. This is related to frontline workers. So does the panel have any suggestions for how to ensure that we get frontline workers engaged, if they're offline? So if they don't have access to a computer on a regular basis, what are some strategies you would recommend to have them involved?
I'm sorry, if they don't have the computer, or are you talking from the app perspective, or they just have no technology? I missed part of the question.
Sure. Yeah. Just so if they're not tied to a computer all day, they're not somebody who's, got a laptop or something like that. They're not in the office structure. They're more on the front line. How do you make sure that they're engaged with rewards and recognition?
I think one of the things we added here is leadership rounding. So we do a ton of rounding as the executive team. So we are out on the floor. We acknowledged when we built that program to our staff. We introduced what we were going to be doing, why we were doing it. We meet with all of our employees. We pick different departments. We mix it up during the teams. We ask some simple questions, how things are going. We also engage a lot in the bucket list. We bring up, did you see so-and-so's recognition, or congrats to your recognition? And so we kind of incorporate that in our rounding. So I think that's been helpful. We also do we still do a imprint employee newsletter. And so we do a lot of capturing of things off the bucket list platform, especially highlight level items. We do a lot of that through our employee newsletter opportunities as well. We also, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. is a town hall. So that's an in-person pop in, face-to-face. It's open to any employee, our CEO or any of the exec team and any of our team leaders, but also a ton of our frontline, because we actually encourage frontline staff to come. And so it's a place for Q&A. It's kind of what's going on right now this week, and what does radiology maybe need to know about what's happening in lab. And so it's just a quick round, and then whoever comes to represent the department is responsible for kind of going back and communicating to the rest. So we've just tried to build a lot of extra communication around this too, outside of the platform.
Awesome. Zach, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I love the response related to leadership rounding. That's been very impactful for us as well. In terms of associates, maybe not having as much access to technology or computers, most of our departments still have what we would call like a safety huddle at some point during the day, however that fits into their schedule. And so that's a great time for, again, leaders to kind of be around frontline staff and to start each other with a safety moment, and also recognize staff. So for example, with our patient satisfaction surveys, if someone's mentioned by name there, we're reading out our positive survey comments at our safety huddles and whatnot. And then obviously we're doing bucket list points in response to that. That's also a way, if someone doesn't have access to something, they can escalate, good stories, good catches, or where someone's gone above and beyond. And then that leader or something like that can maybe enter that recognition in for that associate as well. So the safety huddles, pulse huddles, as we call them, have been very impactful for us.
Awesome. Yeah, these are all great ideas. I would add to some things that I've heard that's been really effective. Some organizations will set up like an iPad station. So for example, if you're in like production, manufacturing, warehouse where people are on the floor, they're not using technology necessarily, having like a station for them to potentially recognize each other, I think is powerful. And then also doing things like broadcasting to TVs and break rooms, that kind of stuff, like showcasing recognition that's happened there. If the technology isn't an option, then go paper. Like, Jody and Rochelle, you talked about how that was kind of your first vision, right? You could have a bulletin board in the break room where people can recognize each other. You can have those types of things. And I think in-person huddling is always super smart, newsletters, things like that. So those are all really great suggestions. I got one more question that came in that I want to be able to shoot to the audience before we wrap up here. And this is an interesting one, and I'm curious to hear your take on it. So the question came in: if an organization is a nonprofit, or they have, very low budgets to be able to dedicate to this kind of thing, what are some no-cost or low-cost reward examples that you might want to provide individuals with so that it feels like a valuable program for them? Curious if you have any thoughts on this.
Yeah, and we are actually a nonprofit ourselves. So, budget is extremely important even in what we're doing. So I think some of the things we did have that were, really appreciated pre-bucket list for us is we might have a team leader who had, either a really tough week, maybe from a clinical perspective, some tougher patients or tougher situations, like more of our ED scenarios. And they would come to us and say, look, my employees, I just really want to support them and acknowledge and appreciate the extra efforts. And so, we would do like a pizza lunch, pick a day and we'll get some pizzas delivered so that the team can kind of collaborate or decompress. And so, I think there are definitely things that you can do. And that's one of the things, certainly there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't intend for everyone to have to run out and do the bucket list piece. It's just in part of Jody and I's conversation, what we wanted to share is we've noticed that those things we were doing before were still at an expense level. Like, we have not significantly increased our expense from what we were truly doing, by taking a platform and kind of having that be the home or the housing of it, if that makes sense. So I don't know if we were clear in that previous.
Yeah, I would say even with the bucket list platform, though, you could start out with just the recognition piece. You don't have to have points tied to it. So it would function just almost like a Facebook feed where I'm saying, hey, Rochelle, great job. Like, thank you so much for your help with this project. And it's still public. And that's, you know, at very low cost. It doesn't have to have the points attached to it.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're just traditional, like a small card, a Post-it note. I think sometimes getting team lead level to really understand what the impact is, and not even just in your own department. I mean, we've got a lot of team leaders now just in feeling more comfortable and having this in place for over a year and a half that, you know, can walk down a hall and acknowledge somebody else in a different department that, you know, that otherwise might not have occurred. So I think that interaction has been huge too.
And one thing that we did prior to Bucket List is we pulled all of the comments off of our Press Ganey surveys that named somebody by name, and we printed those every month in our monthly newsletter as well.
Love that. Super smart. Awesome. Zach, any thoughts on your side from this?
Yeah, a couple of things that come to mind. I think we listened to, I forget the name of the podcast. I'll have to share it with you because I do have it saved on my phone, but there was the CEO of a company, and I think one of the awards that he gave out to associates was a rubber chicken, and it was just this, you know, kind of insane, almost like stupid thing, but he was giving it out to associates that have gone above and beyond or had a significant catch within their organization, and he was emotionally moved by how powerful that rubber chicken and ended up being across his organization, which sounds crazy, right? But they would have, people keeping those things at their desks. You know, he went to visit somebody at their house, and that rubber chicken was up by their like bowling trophies and stuff like that. But it was something simple that had, a significant meaning to people within that organization. We're going to try to do something similar. We have, a Screaming Goat Award and a Caring Koala Award that's going to be based out of stuff with Bucket List. That's just really cheap ways to give associates something that would hopefully mean something to them. But I would echo what Jody and Rochelle said as well. Cards to home, I think that's super impactful. I think one of the things that we try to do here is, kind of have like almost like a list of associates that you have that report to you or whatnot. And, throughout the year, trying to send them a card to their home randomly, or send them a random text message or an email, just appreciating them for something. And the more random it is, the better. Or if it's after like a significant catch or save or event, some of those things, those little touches can be very impactful for associates. So
all really great ideas. I think I would add, some of the interesting things that I've seen, also very simple, like extra paid time off. That's a, low cost, no cost reward you could give your employees. VIP parking, reserve a parking spot. Like, I see that a lot in again, like manufacturing, production, warehousing, just having the closest spot to the door. If you live in Minnesota, for example, where it's cold as heck, right? Being able to not have to do the long walk is probably pretty helpful. And then you can also get really clever and fun too. I've seen, for example, we call it Dream Coffee Week. This is where, your boss has to hand deliver coffee to you every morning for a week, right? Like something like that, that's really fun, that doesn't cost any money. I think there's a lot of creative ways that you can reward and incentivize. Maybe it's a rubber duck, it's whatever it is that you can create value around for employees. So all really great suggestions. We are 15 minutes over. So I think we should probably go ahead and wrap up. Zach, Jody, Rochelle, thank you so much for your valuable time, for the advice that you shared with our attendees today. We really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. So thank you very much. Thank you to all of our attendees, and enjoy the rest of your day.